All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys are having an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are and whenever you're listening to this. It's almost Christmas. I cannot believe that. Next week is going to be Christmas. You guys are probably listening to this after Christmas, but in my time, in real time, it's Christmas, and I'm super excited for this. So I hope you guys are having a good day. As always, we're bringing that Friday energy to you guys. This is going to be a good episode because we have Dedric and Crystal Polite from North Carolina with us. They are flippers and rental owners. So they invest in single family real estate and they do flips. They have a Hulu show called 50/50 Flip. So this should be a good one. I'm super excited to jump into this. Dedric, Crystal, thank you guys for hopping on.
Yes, thank you for having us, Gabe.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I told you before we got on here, we always like starting with stories and hearing how people got to where they are. I'm sure you guys got a good story behind you. So why don't you go to the beginning of your story in real estate and tell us how you got here?
Yeah, I bought my first house in Boston, Massachusetts, 2007. 100% finance. Actually got a check back at closing for $1,200 after I bought a $408,000 triplex. And it all started from reading a book. I read a book called How to Buy Houses with No Money Down and Get Cash Back at Closing. And that was in the days of 100% financing. So that's what I did. But after that, I didn't really do much in real estate. Went back to working my corporate job. I had kind of had the golden handcuffs. Wanted to be a real estate investor, but didn't know how. And didn't have someone to show me. Or it wasn't until I met Crystal where 2 months into us dating, we actually started an Airbnb business together.
Wow,
she was always over at my
that's a quick
her
turnaround in that
sitting
relationship.
vacant. Yeah, her apartment was always vacant. She was always at my place. So I was like, why don't we rent your place out on Airbnb? And she was like, what is that? It was 2012. So Airbnb was still new. So we put her place on Airbnb, made a bunch of money doing that. Then fast forward a few years later, we moved to North Carolina. That's when we really got into real estate heavy with wholesaling and flipping and buying rental properties.
Nice, man. I love it. So Crystal, this was your flat that you guys rented out originally?
Yes, originally it was my 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment. It was probably like 800 square feet, something like that. And he was like, hey, I found a way we can make some money. And I was like, oh, what is it? He was like, oh, we can rent you an apartment. And he said, oh, but wait, your brother's staying there. And I was like, he was. Give me a second. And I made the phone call right. I said, hey, you got 2 weeks and then you're going to have to move.
For the record, he wasn't paying rent. He was just
Yeah.
on the couch.
And of course, he was like, no, I'll start paying the rent and stuff. Like I said, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I said, I'm going to be renting it out. So he was like, oh man, okay. So I told Dedric, I said, all right, hung the phone up. I said, what do I need to do? What next? And he was like, oh, okay. Well,
he's like, that's a good question. Let me figure that out. But that is that is the best way, and just how a lot of people get involved in real estate is, they see the potential and then they jump. And I feel like that is the best way. Obviously, you need to have a little bit of education, but there really isn't a true way to replace experience and just doing a deal. And so if you see the opportunity, like you guys, you had your apartment, you saw the opportunity to rent it out as an Airbnb and you just jumped. You said, we can do this. Let's figure it out as we go. And that leads to bigger and better things, obviously. And I also wanted to kind of point on, Dedric, you started your first deal with 100% financing. That's not something a lot of people start with. So what kind of got you into that deal structuring?
Well, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2001. That opened my mind to the idea of becoming either a business owner or a real estate investor. Then I started reading all these books and tapes and ordering all these self-study programs, but I didn't do anything with it because I was risk averse. Crystal was a lot more of a risk taker than me, so I didn't want to mess up, right? Because of that lack of experience and go broke. But yeah, that's kind of how I came across it.
Makes sense. So let's fast forward a little bit. You did those first two deals, and then you started ramping up your investing out there in North Carolina. Take us to the first couple of deals once you really started to get the business running. What were your goals originally, and how did it pan out?
Yeah, the first few deals, our goal always, Gabe, has been to build a buy and hold portfolio.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to buy rental properties. We both were working corporate jobs. I was making six figures a year. Crystal was doing pretty well, but we were still living paycheck to paycheck. So we're like, we can't do this for the next 30 to 40
And
years. We
I'm going
want
to
to
pause you
retire.
on that. It is crazy. And just you mentioned you're still living paycheck to paycheck, even though you had a good job, she had a good job. And I feel like that is the case with so many people out there. And it's amazing that people can have six-figure jobs and still you just find
Yep.
yourself living paycheck to paycheck because, $100,000 isn't what it used to be. And you really do need an alternative strategy to give yourself a cushion if you want to keep your job. Because I know that not everybody wants to be a full-time investor, and that's totally fine. But to
Right.
have that cushion is so beneficial. So, anyways, I jumped into your story. Keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had to ask for permission to take vacations, to go to our kids' events, so we barely saw each other because we're both working 60, 80 hours a week. So we wanted out of the rat race. I struggled around trying to figure it out on my own, watching podcasts and going to YouTube University, couldn't figure out how to get into the game. And really Crystal was like, hey, we need to hire a mentor. We
Mm.
need to hire someone who can guide us, who's been there before, who's done this, so we can shorten our learning curve. God knows how long it would have took us if we did not hire a mentor. So that was one of the first things we did before we'd made any money. We spent over $10,000 getting into a mastermind group of full-time investors who were making seven figures. They kind of showed us the way, right? In addition to that, we hired a mentor. Our first wholesale deal, right? Our mentor was like, look, you guys want to buy rental properties, but you don't have the cash. You need to wholesale to build up your capital and your cash. Then you can start using that as down payments on rental properties. And that's exactly what we did. Crystal found an off-market deal on Facebook Marketplace. We ended up tying it up on the contract for 54,000. We wholesaled it to the couple who did our taxes for 65,000, made 11 grand. First deal. Second deal made 5,000 bucks. And our third deal was a virtual wholesale deal up in Boston while we're in North Carolina, made 105 grand. And that was like the light bulb moment. Like, man, we can really quit our jobs from this real estate thing off this income.
Yeah, there's a few things I want to highlight there because I love that story. First of all, I love Crystal that you had the wisdom to focus on mentorship and mastermind groups. This is something I wish I would have done when I first got started. I bought a course. I bought it was a Matt Turiel. He's a guy out of California, flipper. Bought his course, learned through that, but I never got that hands-on experience. And from I have had sense, and I know the impact it can make. And so kudos to you guys for having that wisdom to focus in on the relationships, on focusing and on building a relationship with someone who has been there, who's already had the success that you want, so they can show you the path to where you want to get. Really smart. I always like when people mention that they've had experience with mastermind groups. Shout it out. If you guys feel comfortable, do you want to share the mastermind group that you joined?
Yeah, the first one that we joined, it was what's the name of them?
The fast track.
The fast track out of St. Louis, I think it
Okay.
was. St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So it was the fast track out of St. Louis, and it was basically centered around marketing, which anyone who's in the real estate industry know, if you don't have any marketing, you don't have a business. So it really deep dived on all the different areas of marketing and really taught us how to market, but that
Find motivated sellers.
and find motivated sellers. But and that was just the conference that we went to of theirs. And then from the conference, they upsold to a mastermind. And of course, it was a bigger investment, but like I told my husband, I'd rather us be the lowest on the totem pole in a room where most people will look at and be like, hey, I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Because everyone in that room is going to know that you invested to be here. So they're going to be willing and more than willing to pour into you, which is exactly what happened with us. They poured into us. They knew we invested to be here, so they knew we wanted to be here. Everyone in there was full-time investors already. Dedric and I were the only ones who weren't full-time in the business. So they really helped us hone our business to turn it from a hobby into a true business.
Yeah. And I like that you said you wanted to be the low man on the totem pole. That is
Absolutely.
such a good mentality to have. And you really have to kind of suck the ego down, and because it's difficult to be in that situation. I remember like the first time I went on and to, those meetup groups and stuff, and I was the presenter, I always felt like, why are people listening to me? These other guys have so much experience. But you really have to get into those situations, because when you're the low man on the totem pole, that means there's only up. Only way to go is up. You're going to be experiencing You're going to be learning from people, and it's difficult to kind of to take that in sometimes, but it's definitely a great way to learn. So love that you did that. Last thing that I'll focus on in your story leading up to today, you mentioned you got your deal on Facebook Marketplace. I just want to kind of highlight that because it shows that you can really get a deal anywhere. People always focus on specific, I can only get a deal running Facebook ads or doing direct mailing or whatever. But really, you can get a deal from almost anywhere. Facebook Marketplace, getting a deal done from Facebook Marketplace, that's awesome. I know it happens. I've never done it myself, but it just goes to show that there are so many different marketing channels out there that you can take advantage of that have zero cost. Facebook Marketplace, zero cost. Craigslist, zero cost. And you can be reaching out to these people and possibly getting a deal done. So that's awesome. So you guys, you got started once you went through your course. You got into your mastermind. You really decided to focus in. You got a few wholesales. That was your first step, was getting those wholesales done. Once you did those wholesales, at what point did you? Because at this point, it sounds like you're not quite running a business. You're taking steps, but you don't have the systems and processes down. And then you guys start to build out your business, build out the systems and processes. What was the catalyst for you next?
Yeah, once we closed those first 3 deals, Gabe, we had 121 grand we'd made. We immediately started gobbling up rental properties. Yeah. So within like that first 3 months after closing those first 3 deals, we had acquired like 16 units. We bought 2 fourplex.
100,000? Where are you buying these things?
in North Carolina. In North Carolina, like our first flex, we paid 45 grand for. Now, mind you, we thought the rehab, it needed a gut rehab. We thought the rehab was going to cost us 75 grand. We ended up getting contractor estimates back at 150. Oof. So we quickly had to pivot and say, all right, instead of doing a BRRRR strategy on this, we're going to actually just sell this as is. And we sold it for 55 after we bought it for 45, and we moved on to the next deal. But we immediately dove into building our portfolio. I actually kept my job strategically. So most people would make 105,000 on one wholesale deal with no rehab. They would quit their job.
They're like, I'm done. Moving to the Bahamas.
I was making my last year in corporate in 2019. I made 160,000. So I kept my job strategically so that I can get bank loans and put down 25% and build our portfolio off bank loans. Then in 2020, January, I quit my job because we were making 6 figures a month wholesaling and buying rentals and real estate. And then I went full time, and Crystal went full time maybe a year before. But during that time period, we, again, being in these mentorships and these masterminds and having a coach, we had the systems and processes in place to scale a 7-figure business before we had a 7-figure business.
There you go. So it sounds like you guys went pretty deep into wholesaling. That was a significant element of your business plan was executing a wholesaling business, which is different than doing one-off wholesales. Let's dive into that just a little bit. What was your guys' main methods of generating leads when you were, running the wholesaling business? And then what was your acquisitions strategy like?
So starting off our marketing, when we first got started, our marketing was cold calling. And we
individually, like you guys.
No.
Briefly.
Briefly. So we started. Yeah. So we knew what to do, knew what we were doing, but that was real brief. But through our coaches and mentors, it was like, hey, listen, you got a cold call. Here's teams in place that can cold call for you. So we started with the cold calling. And then we found that difficult in the beginning because we didn't know the KPIs that we should have been tracking. We didn't know we weren't monitoring their calls and stuff like that. So leads weren't coming in the way we felt they should have been coming in. And it wasn't until one of the people at our mastermind was like, well, hey, are you auditing their calls? And we're like, no. And it was like, well, you need to audit their calls and listen to them. So then when I listened to them, I was like, oh,
yeah, they really suck. They are not saying the right thing.
Exactly. Like people are hanging up. You talk about my name is John, but your accent is as thick as outdoors in the middle of the winter in Boston. Like, and you're trying to tell them my John I live in North Carolina. They're like, what? Click, hang up. And so we pivoted from that to text messaging, right? So nobody can talk.
Okay. Yeah.
Just doing text marketing, right? Then we did ringless voicemail. So then we started to have conveyor belt method where I started really getting into our marketing. So I took over the marketing when I went into the business full time because I said I had to take the biggest part of the business off of Dedric's plate. That's what I did. So I started, I took over our marketing. I did a real deep dive market analysis for us. And I realized we have a heavier, older population in our market. So I pivoted our marketing and did away with the text messaging and stuff and started focusing on direct mail. Direct mail and cold calling. And I tell people why, because once I really took a look at our market, everyone was like 60. We had such a huge 60 plus population. And those were the landlords. Those are the ones who owned 100 units. Yeah. But what we do know is older people are going to do what? They're going to answer their phone and they're going to check their mail. If you text my mother, you're going to get a text back 2 weeks later from her just seeing your text. So I realized that and then pivoted, and we started now building up a team of individuals who are driving for dollars, as we call it in the business. Okay. Where my mother was our first and biggest deal finder, just driving our market, finding deals. She's retired, uploading them, and we were sending postcards out. And that's how we really started to scale and get traction. Was we were mailing to this 65 plus generation, and everyone's calling back at this point. Everyone's picking up the phone because I pivoted once I really looked at our market and saw we have this older population, and they're not texting us back. Like, they're not seeing those. So that's what we really started to do first. And then it wasn't until we started the postcards and then following up with a phone call. And we always tell people to start with the cheapest form of marketing first. So now we'll start with a phone call. If they don't answer, we automatically put it on postcards, put it on a mailer campaign for the next year. And then we follow back up with a phone call. And now what we're doing is that exact method, right? So we have a team of cold callers who that's what they do. They cold call. And if we hear no traction, then we start mailer campaigns for our market. Anything else I'm missing?
Yeah, I think you did pretty well. And I like that you guys focus on direct mail. That is still my favorite form of outreach. And I love it because it's a slow burn. Like you'll send a campaign and you'll get a few calls, quite a few calls at the beginning, but sometimes you'll get a call, 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, someone will call to say, "Hey, I had this letter from you guys. I've just been sitting on it. I think now's the time for me to sell." And so they'll kind of sit out there in the world, right. And you'll continue to see results from them. I also like that you guys have a process. You don't just touch them once. This is a mistake that I did when I first got started. Is I would just do one touch. I would send one mailer, and if I didn't get results, hey, that was it. I'm not gonna, I just called that list dead. But that's not how you do it. In fact, I can't remember which book it was from or which person said it, but I know that you have to touch people 7 times. And by saying that, I mean, like, get in front of them 7 times before it registers in their brain and they decide to take action.
Exactly.
And so you guys are calling, you're mailing, and I'm sure you're doing multiple touches after that in order to get responses from these people that if you're driving for dollars, you've seen their house, it's probably pretty crappy. They got a tarp over the roof, they got broken windows. These people want to sell. They're not living in that house. So I love to hear that.
Absolutely.
So we are running the clock down. This is a short format podcast, but before we move on, I do want to ask about the Hulu 50/50 flip. Not a lot of people come on with the show. Tell us about that. How'd you get started? How's it been going?
Yeah, Gabe, it's been amazing. So the show's called 50/50 Flip. It's on Hulu. We have 2 seasons, and it's also on A&E on Saturdays. It airs on A&E. And producers from the show reached out to us actually through social media. They found us because this whole entire time we were documenting what we were doing from the beginning of our journey. You go on our Instagram, look up
pause right there, because this is really interesting, and I feel like it's something that every investor can do. You just don't realize how useful it will be. So tell us, before you go into the nitty gritty of it, tell us what you guys were doing when you were posting your content when you were just getting started. You were just starting to just show people what you were doing. What was the flow like?
Yeah, in that mastermind group we joined early in our career, we told the leader, we're like, hey, we need to raise more private money. We need more funding to renovate these properties we're acquiring. And he was like, here's what you need to do. You need to start documenting your journey. We're like, what do you mean? He's like, when you do a walkthrough, get your phone out, go selfie style, show yourself on Facebook and social media walking through. When you
Mm,
meet in a contractor, meeting with tenants and landlords, document what you're doing. What that's gonna do is people are gonna see like, oh, Gabe's really into this. Like, this is not a hobby. Dedric and Crystal, they're really taking this thing seriously. And that's what we did. And it didn't happen overnight, but over 12, 24, 36 months, our friends, family, social circle, network started seeing like, man, these guys really take this business seriously. They're out there really doing this. So we started attracting investors, private money lenders, and we eventually attracted the attention of A&E Network. So they reached out to us and said, hey, we're looking to do a new TV show featuring a couple that does this business. And we were like, great, we're flattered, but we're not house flippers, right? We wholesale to buy and hold. We wholesale for capital and we buy rental properties.
Yeah, we're investors.
They saw we were renovating all these properties on our social media. Those are actually our buy and hold rentals, but they thought we
mm,
were flipping them.
Yep.
mm.
So we explained our business model, and they were like, "Okay, we don't care that you don't flip them. We want to just follow you guys. You're interesting." So we went through a whole round of interviews and negotiations, and we finally signed up, and we signed on to do a deal. Now we're 2 years into it. It's one of the top shows on A&E, and then the show got picked to go onto Hulu. Three out of 50 shows that A&E submitted to Hulu to get onto the Hulu platform with 45 million subscribers. Ours was one of three shows that was selected.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome. Congratulations, you guys. And that
Thank
all
you.
Thank
came, I'm just stressing the point that all came from you guys just showing what you were doing in your deals. You're walking around. I'm sure when you went to a property, you were going to do your site visit. You were just taking a video. You're like, hey, this is a property we're looking at. Here's, this is what we're thinking we're going to do. Nothing special, nothing, no high value production, just taking your camera out, your iPhone, whatever,
Literally
taking that
iPhone.
video. Yep. And post into that.
Yep.
Would you post it?
you.
Where were you posting it when you did it? Was it just Instagram, or were you using like TikTok or YouTube or?
So this was
Yep.
in 2017, 2018 when we first started. It was really
Mm,
just Facebook and Instagram.
And YouTube.
And then we eventually started a YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
nice. I love it. Well, yeah, if anybody wants to watch that episode or that show, it looks like it's on, you said Hulu, and there was another one, Annie.
Hulu and
Yeah.
A&E and also any streaming
Yep, it's
platform.
on Prime.
Yeah, just search 50/50 Flip.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to take that opportunity to move us into the quick question round. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right. It starts with education. Could be any form. Could be a book you've read, a conference you've gone to, mentorship program you've been a part of. But we need two recommendations: one for general life wisdom, and then one for real estate.
Um, General life wisdom. The one that we always recommend to our students,
Traction.
never split the difference.
Okay.
That's funny.
Yeah,
That was just recommended by the last guest. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard good things. So good recommendation.
yeah, so negotiation book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He's a former FBI negotiator. That one book has literally made us millions in our negotiations from the tactics and strategies from that one book, Never Split the Difference. General life lessons, I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's going to teach you how to make friends and influence people, be an influencer, be someone that's interesting and by being interested in other people.
And it doesn't matter what industry you're in for either one of those books.
Yeah. Dale Carnegie's book, it's one of the best. I never liked the title for some reason. I just felt it was kind of cheesy, but I really like the book. It's like solid advice, just to be a good person in relationship, how to
Right.
treat people correctly, and treat people well. And so good recommendations.
Exactly.
That moves us on to the next question. This is for your younger selves. Let's go back to the Dedric and Crystal who were just getting started so many years ago. Go back to them, look them in the eye, and give them one piece of advice moving forward.
My one piece of advice would be to start sooner, right? If I could do this all over again, I wouldn't erase anything other than because everything that we've endured has been a life lesson, but I would have started sooner. So, and allowed a lot of people procrastinate, they have analysis paralysis. And as long as you start, right? We didn't have any answers when we began. I created the LLC, I created all of this stuff and did it wrong. But guess what? I did it and we got started.
Yeah, mine would be embrace failure. So I was someone that was afraid of failing because I didn't know what would happen or if I would be able to put food on the table. But the more you fail, the more successful you can actually
Yes.
become. So embrace failure.
Perfect. And I, every time somebody says, Crystal, your piece of advice, we always take a moment to pause on it, because I don't know how many people we used to keep count, but now we don't, because it's got to be like 90% of the investors that come on the show give that piece of advice. They say, I wish I got started sooner. So whenever somebody says that, I always point it back to you listening to this episode. If you have not done your first deal, this is a message to you directly. Everybody that comes on this show who have great success behind them, they all wish they got started sooner. So if you haven't done your first deal, or maybe you've done one and you're just kind of putting your toe into the water, this is a message to just go out there and get moving. Just it takes one deal. You just need to get it done. I know it's scary. Like Dedric said, you have to embrace failure. You are going to fail. There's no way around it. And so you just need to get that first deal done, get the minimum amount of education you need, and then go out there and make some moves. So great pieces of advice. That moves us to the next question. This is about the US. It's a big place. There is a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
The single metro, two. One is the Triad area, North Carolina. So Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Burlington. But the other metro is the entire US. Like you said, there's opportunity down around every corner if you know what you're looking for. There's opportunity on every single street to make money in real estate.
There you go. As he said, the United States, there's opportunity everywhere. So wherever you guys are, whatever metro you are excited about, I always say there is opportunity everywhere, but it is good when the metro is growing. So if you have a positive net migration, that is a positive thing. But there are deals, even if it is shrinking. So go out there, get a deal done. Moves us to the next question. This is about finding deals. It all starts with getting in contact with the seller and penning that purchase agreement. Crystal, I'm going to point this one to you. What is your favorite way to generate leads and find new deals?
My favorite way to generate leads, I'm going to say for me, is driving for dollars. But I think one of the most effective right now can also be pay per leads or pay per click. Especially if you're in a market like ours where it's not costing you 10,000 per lead. But my favorite is driving for dollars. Why? Because that list that we gather is going to be one of the most favorable lists, because no other investor is going to have that list. These are properties that I or Dedric physically see that there's some form of distress with this property. So that is still my favorite.
Anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. So
What are you
that is
looking
still
for?
my absolute favorite.
What do you guys have like an app that you use, or I know there's apps out there you can
Yes.
just take a picture and it'll send a mailer. Is there anything like
Yes.
that you can
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah,
Yep.
we use an app called Deal Machine. So if
Deal
they just
Machine,
go to
okay.
getdealmachine.com, and it's a driver for dollars app. So literally you're driving down the street, you see a rundown, beat up, ugly house. You can pull your phone out, tap a pin, add that property to your list, and you can even get the owner's contact information. We call the owner typically on the spot
Right
and just
then.
say, hey, I see the house. You have any
I'm
interest in
standing in
selling?
front of it. I know it's a piece of crap. I know
Right
you
in
want to
front.
sell this.
And you'd be surprised sometimes.
Yep.
Matter of fact, I'm glad you called. How much will you offer me? And now
Yep.
you're in a conversation.
And if they don't pick up, we send a mailer right from the app. So the app will send the mailer for us. We'll put it on a mailer campaign. We can text message the owner right then as well. And so the app is robust, and you don't have to think of the text message. So you can just say, hey, to the app, hey, write me a text message to send to this owner.
It has AI built into it.
So I can say, make it funny or make it serious or make it shorter, and it'll do it for me and send it off for us. But it's getdealmachine.com.
Cool. Good recommendation. All right. Next question is about lessons learned. Not every deal we get into goes the way we expect it. In fact, many times something goes wrong and we get to learn a lesson. So, what was a deal that went a little sideways for you guys? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Yeah, I would say one is actually featured on our TV show. It's on season two, the finale episode. It was a house that I didn't even want to buy. Right. We do 10 houses, 10 episodes per season for 50/50 flips. So we needed the 10th house. And we had it under contract and we had our site inspection, the home inspection was done, and they found major foundation issues. At the last minute, I'm like, these foundation issues are going to cost like 25 grand. We got a quote back. The numbers don't make sense anymore. And Crystal's like, no, we are under contract. We need a 10th house. We got to do this deal. So we had a little back and forth, and I was like, all right, well, we need this house, so let's just buy it. And it ended up working out. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's going to watch the TV show, but it ended up working out.
That's why it's the season finale. And I like the house. Not for me to live in it in that condition.
When you see the before pictures, it's episode 10 of season 2, and you see the before video, and you see the after, you'll be blown away.
Unbelievable.
I love it. Yeah, foundation issues are always something that it's just a hard no for me. If I see that, I'm like, nah, I think I'll move on. But hey, you guys got a show to run. You need some spicy drama. So I love that you guys took it on. You got it done. Season 2, episode 10. If you guys want to see that specific deal, go and check it out. All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely, Gabe. So you mentioned before, like people just, they need to go ahead and do that first deal. And I know the feeling of that pit in your stomach where you're nervous. You're like, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to lose my shirt. So that's why we created something called Polite Wealth Portal. Crystal and I, our motto is it doesn't matter how many doors or how many rental properties we own. It's about how many doors we can open. So we created this educational platform where we teach people, it doesn't matter if you have very little to no cash, bad credit, right? Because we had all that when we first started. But we still persevered and became financially free. So through Polite Wealth Portal, if they go to politewealthportal.com, they can learn about all our educational classes, from the online courses we teach to the one-on-one mentorship programs that we have.
Perfect.
And you can find us on social media on anything Be Polite. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everything is Be Polite or Be Polite Properties. And what you can expect is to actually hear back from someone, right? Even if it is a question that you have on a deal that you're already working on. We try to be what we needed when we first got started. So whether you're in a course or not, people send us emails or they'll DM us like, hey, I'm really trying to get this first deal done and I run into this roadblock. And guess what? We try to help them get through that roadblock to get the deal done. Whether we ever work with you or not, our goal is to make it just that much easier for the next individual. Just like Dedric said, our motto is it costs nothing to be polite. And it's true. That's what we embody. That's what we try to live our life through. So if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us.
Perfect. I will put Dedric and Crystal's links in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out, get involved with what they're doing out there, all you got to do is just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description, and in there you can find their links. Dedric, Crystal, that wraps it up. I really appreciate you guys hopping on here and talking about your experiences.
Gabe, we appreciate you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabe.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review on whatever you're listening to this on. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.